This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Benerofe, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. And me, Peter Katz, formerly with NBC, ABC News, and stations from Boston to Los Angeles. White Plains Week, what's happening, who are the newsmakers, what's in store for the future. The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains, Westchester, and the world. John Bailey, Citizen-Net reporter, the old Citizen-Net reporter, here with the Dean of the White Plains School of Journalism, Jim Benerofe, with the headlines.
And here are the headlines in White Plains for the week of June 7th, 2019. White Plains in America solemnly remember the 75th observation of the D-Day invasion that turned the tide against Nazi tyranny, June 6, 1944. The day 2,500 to 4,000 soldiers died to keep the world free. The Democrats who challenged Cat Bresler approved decisions, filed an appeal with the New York State Court of Appeals. The Common Council, acting impeccably civil to each other this week, takes care of a lot of old business. The Department of Motor Vehicles considers moving but staying in White Plains. County Executive George Latimer introduces listening devices, hires a consultant to decide why jets are making more noise than usual. The National Business Aviation Association attracts over 2,500 aviation professionals and 34 very sexy planes for the high and the mighty at Westchester Airport. On Your Feet brings opening nighters to their feet at Westchester Broadway Theater.
Thanks, Jim. And let's go to the White Plains Week video newsreel for the March of Time of June 7th, 2019. And that is the New York State Court of Appeals up on King Street in Albany, where the Cat Bresler matter may be heard by the Court of Appeals. We don't know when the date will be, whether they've accepted it, but the situation is the Democratic challengers appeal the New York appeal to the New York Court of Appeals, the appellate court decision that we spoke about last week that has put, as of this moment, Cat Bresler on the ballot for the June 25th primary. The League of Women and Voters announced the appeal, Jim, to the Court of Appeals. There's too many courts of, right? Can't get these appeals straight. But be that as it may, they announced it saying whether or not they will have the primary forum on June 17th is up in the air. So we'll have to stay tuned for that one. And my feeling is you think this is a great decision of theirs, appealing it.
Which appeal are we talking about?
The Bresler appellate court supporting decision to put her on the ballot. That's what's being appealed.
Yeah, I think they'll lose the appeal, but that's my opinion, offhanded opinion.
No, I think it's really a bad public relations move, as is the national story the Times put out about how the Democratic Congressional Caucus is attempting to put a rule in saying you cannot primary an incumbent Democrat, which is
That
really.
effectively says we
Yeah.
shouldn't have any primaries.
That's right. We shouldn't have primaries, and the only way you can get nominated is to really play up and go along with the party line, which is not the way this country was built. I'm sorry, and that is not democratic at all. It is just a pathetic move by the national Democratic leadership to solidify their power and cling to a dying party. They have no message right now that they're sending out. They have two gentlemen of advanced years going up against Trump as the front runners, and in fact, we were discussing about being too old to lead before the program.
Yeah, I desperately want to write an editorial about that. I'm in the same age category as those guys, and probably in a lot better physical condition. And I don't know what the actuarial statistics are for life insurance, but I have no complaint about their political positions, but the real problem is they are too old to withstand the pressures of the office of president.
I mean, already Biden makes about maybe 1 or 2 appearances a week. That shows to be a person who doesn't have the stamina. Mr. Trump makes appearances every day. Every day, and you have to give him credit for that. He's tireless.
Well, I've heard things that
Or maybe he has
nods
doubles.
off when
Maybe
he-
his body doubles.
when he's on the golf cart that he nods.
Well, golf is a sleepy game unless
Right.
there's a lot of money around. You got to putt. Right. Yes.
And Trump is what, 72, something like that. It's a tough age to be president, believe me.
It's a tough age, period, because you think your body is the same as it always was because your mind is pretty much the same, but the body has a disagreement with the mind.
Yes.
But now we had a common council meeting Monday, and they cleaned up a lot of unfinished business, and the first one was and also the common council persons, Lacona was amazed, threw amazing bouquets at some of the other council people, in sharp contrast to her attitude and the other council person's attitude towards her and Mr. Crowley last week. And it's good to see a spirit of détente come to the council. Were you impressed with the love fest going on Monday night? Love fest at Common Council. Amazing stuff. So the main thing is Esplanade.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
Well, the Esplanade asked for an extension for their approvals. I believe this is the second extension they have asked for. Am I correct on that?
I think it's the third.
The third.
But
At any rate,
I think.
it was voted in favor of giving the extension 4-2. Crowley and Lacuna voted against it. I don't know if they turned it down, do they have to reapply? Or I don't know exactly what happens if...
No, in fact, that was not mentioned. But of course, the Common Council rarely explains what happens if you turn it down. We don't have enough information. As in the immortal words of Rita Malma, we don't have enough information. And my feeling about this is, and the persons that were representing the Esplanade owners were saying, we want to get this done, and Mr. Crowley was particularly mocking of them, saying, well, you've had 3 years to get it started, basically. And they said, Well, things happen, but never when they lost a contractor. They had a contractor who came in, take a look at it, they said, and then decided to pull out. You really can't help it when that happens. Now, that since the site plan was approved, they could now perhaps sell it and have someone else take over the property entirely. What is that one of their options here?
I think that's one of their options. I think if the council voted it down, it would have been saying, what do you want to happen with the property? Do you want it to be built, or do you want to just let it languish? As I say, I don't know what happens when they turn something like that down.
Some's a ghost building.
Yeah.
Yes. And they also approved the extension of the site plan for the White Plains Mall, and also approved the IDA tax abatements. And Ms. Lacuna protested mildly about that.
Yes, well,
very.
was
I mean, I thought
about,
I was in Parliament.
Yeah. What was interesting about her protest, she was concerned about the work being done by union contractors.
Yes, yes.
And one of the candidates running for the Common Council on a Democratic ticket is head of the local AFL-CIO.
Yeah, it's Jennifer Puja.
Jennifer Puja.
Yeah.
And so I would assume...
Well, let's hope that she is a staunch defender of unions when she gets on the council. Yeah. That'll be really interesting. Suppose Bresler is denied by the Court of Appeals and is off the ballot. Well, she's still on the ballot for the Working Families Party. But this isn't an issue here that is going to, I think you're going to hammer on them, is that these new candidates for Common Council that the Democrats nominated, Ms. Presser and Ms. Puja, they have no experience. Mm-hmm. And so therefore, what kind of leaders will they be? I think that's a big issue. Right. And, but that, just saying, you know.
Well, I don't know Bresler personally. I know you interviewed her.
Yes, right.
She appears to be, and she has already sent out a flyer. We got it in the mail.
Mm-hmm.
She appears to be a go-getter and fairly aggressive and whatnot. And
yes.
I have to be impressed by that.
Yes. Yes, and Nadine Hunt Robinson has been making very statesman-like statements in each of the last two meetings I have seen her. And you think she's campaigning? Well, she is. That's the great advantage of being an incumbent running. What's odd, though, is the Democrats didn't want the two incumbents who have been on the council, Crowley and Lacuna, to be their standard bearers this year. They're kicking out the incumbents. And whereas the National Party is trying to make sure no incumbent ever gets opposed by anybody within their own party. I mean, you know, that is really a big thing, gang. And you've got to let Democrats know that this is not democratic at all. It's Republican. It's actually fascism, Nazism, what's that other one? Socialism,
yeah,
among other things. It's just a power preservation plan. That's what it is.
Yeah.
No, make no mistake. I'm really serious about that. Now, some other things. They approved the artificial intelligence games and for malls.
Yes.
That was a big time thing. That will change things a lot. And they raised the income levels for persons in rent and housing for yes, affordable housing, but it's from 30,000 to 50,000 now. And there will be more information coming out about that. And Anything else you want to say about the council?
Well, talk about the Department of Motor Vehicles.
Right, moving to...
They're going to move to 3 Barker Avenue.
Right there.
And I think it was Kirkpatrick that pointed out, well, you know, it favors it. That's an entirely different kind of building, and it's an office building, and the parking situation around there is not super great. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Wow. And we
think
await
okay.
the start of the Bank Street second tower. See action on that this week?
Oh.
No? Did you see any action on the Mamaroneck and Post Road building?
No.
No.
Those, and the pavilion site.
Yes. That is the big hole.
Yeah.
That is the big hole. And when are they going to get going on that? Now, let's go to Chappaqua. And that, Jim, is a jet flying in over a home on Howard Drive, I believe it was, up in Chappaqua, where George Latimer held a news conference. Here is George Latimer and his trusty Director of Communications, Catherine Chiaffi, walking in to demonstrate the new portable sound listening device that has been installed on that property. Mr. Latimer also announced that he has hired a new consultant, Harris, Miller, and Hansen, which will do a $200,000 study for the county to better collect hard empirical data on noise and flight patterns. Expanded hard data, he says, is needed to assist the county to address the Committee on Noise concerns. And Latimer, Harris, Miller, and Hansen, which will do a $200,000 study for the county to better collect hard empirical data on noise and flight patterns. Expanded hard data, he says, is needed to assist the county to address the Committee on Noise concerns. And Latimer also said the consultant will help them give ideas to the FAA on how to change. So, and that should take about a year to get this all done. Now, another shot. Let's take a look at that listening device again. There it is. And there's a microphone that sticks up. It's run by solar power, and it's recording everything. I will say this, that jet that we showed at the beginning of this sequence, very loud. But there was also trains going down from the Metro North Railroad, and also a lot of traffic noise from the Sawmill River Parkway near that house. So that's the problem. I mean, there's noise everywhere today. But anyway, we will see. Now, what this means is this stretches out any decisions on the airport for at least a year, I figure. So this is conveniently sliding in to well past the next election that Mr. Latimer has to face. That's just my guess. Not that there's anything wrong with being careful and crossing your T's and dotting your I's when you're trying to convince the FAA. That's definitely in order. And now you went to another show about books this year.
Yes,
Talk about that.
Last week I went for, I think it was my 6th time to Book Expo America, which is the largest book show, I believe, in the United States. And it's usually held at the Javits Center. It was held one time in Chicago, which I actually went to. But it has everything you can imagine about books. And the two most interesting parts of the show are they have an adult book and author breakfast, and they have a children's book and author breakfast. The adult book and author breakfast, the authors that were there were Malcolm Gladwell, who you may be familiar with. He's got a new book that's coming out, I believe, in September called Talking with Strangers. And I have a reader's copy of it. and I think that's going to be a very exciting book. He talked about what it's about, but I think it's going to be a book really worth getting. Then there was Ta-Nehisi Coates, and he wrote a book called The Water Dancer. I was not familiar with him. Then there was Marjorie Liu, that's Liu, and she had a graphic novel which is called Monstress, which I have a copy of. And then Karen Slaughter, who is a fabulous speaker, very entertaining and very comedic. And her new book is The Last Widow. The panel
Great
was
title.
What?
That's a great title.
Yes, it is. The panel was moderated by Rachel Maddow, and she does, I can't remember the name of the book offhand, but she's got a new book coming out also. But she was superb and excellent.
It must be great seeing her in person. Is she as tall and lanky and dominating as she? That's really unusual.
Then the children's book and author breakfast was really interesting because I thought it was going to be more about real children's books, but some of them I think were geared towards young adult literature. But the children's books, Lupita Nyong'o was there, and her book is called Solway, and that will be out in September. And then there was Tome Adeyemi, and her book is, in which I have a copy of her book, Children of Blood and Bone, and she was a really terrific speaker, entertaining. There's another book by Edwin Culfer called Artemis Fowl. He was absolutely hilarious, terrific. And the next author was Da Chen, Girl Under a Red Moon, and that sounded pretty interesting. I have a copy of that.
A lot of foreign authors.
Yes. And the moderators of that panel were Jenna Bush Hager and Barbara Pierce Bush. And their book is Sisters First, a copy of which I already had. I think they're putting out another version, but they're very good. And I think Jenna Bush is going to be at White Plains Hospital to speak at a luncheon. I believe it's June 10th, but I'm not sure. I might be, might be the wrong date.
We'll have to check on that. And
the show is very entertaining, and a lot of other things I could talk about, but I don't think.
There's a new book I just heard about today in a press release called the D-Day Girls, and it is about the women spies who risked their lives that helped make the D-Day invasion the success it turned out to be, the necessary success it turned out to be. And I just got the news release this morning, and it sounds like a book long overdue. Now, let's go out to the airport. And at the airport, the Westchester County Airport, the National Business Aviation Association held its quarterly regional meeting at Westchester Airport, and you're looking at the gaggle of very sexy airplanes that were flown in by makers of these aircraft to present them to possible clients who might want to buy them. In fact, are you interested? I mean, it might.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, there are a lot of suggestions out there.
I just don't have the money.
Right. Well, you don't need money. Anybody who attends the show, your credit is always good. Right. But anyway, inside the hangar was a complete aircraft hangar filled with vendors. It was amazing. One of the larger trade shows I've ever seen, and this was all products to aid in aviation, from avionics or whatever. And I interviewed a gentleman from Ed Bolin, up in the upper left-hand corner. He is the head of the association, and he pointed out how valuable aviation is, with over 5,000 public use airports. Then we have an infrastructure of airports that opens the world to us. It's very powerful. Business aviation, he said, is possible because of broader infrastructure that includes airplanes, airports, FBOs, that's flight-based operators, and includes our ability, he says, to access airspace and these airports themselves. It includes a lot of dedicated people who are flying as pilots, but also those who are maintaining the airplane, building the airplane, financing the airplane. He talked about how the industry needs to come together to face challenge, and such as last year's fight against air traffic control privatization. And we've got community, we've got purpose, he says, we've got technology, we also offer experiences. And they are looking for persons who want to get into the aviation business. And on display there in the lower left-hand corner, out for anyone who wanted to go out and check them out, is the world's fastest jet turboprop, the TR-93, which goes 480 miles an hour. Gets you 3/4 way across the country. And over on the right is your typical business jet by Embraer, and that's about 9 persons. Oh no, wait, that's the Gulfstream. We're a huge lineup of people to see this 19-seater. And next slide, please. This is what I ate at the Westchester Broadway Theater last night when I saw the On Your Feet, which had its press night Thursday evening, and that is pork, nice gravy, plantains, and black beans, and they were delicious. A real culinary departure for the Emilio and Gloria Esteban musical On Your Feet. And let's take a look at some of the leads. There they are. Jose Luacas is Emilio on the left, and Maria Bilbao is a charming Gloria Esteban, and shots of the cast, very energetic, and there she is. She was a terrific lead, great to look at, and a very good voice, and really gave you a believable performance as Gloria Esteban. One of the best parts of this is in the second act when she is injured in a traffic accident and recounts how she came back, and ends very happily in the show. Great show, great entertainment. Everybody loved it, and it's a great Latin feel. Anyway, this is John Bailey and Jim Benerofe. I have trouble remembering. Good night for White Plains Week.
This has been White Plains Week, news and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.